Linda Alela is my name, and as always, it's a pleasure to have you joining us on the Millionaire Mind. And as promised, we'll always get to have a specialist coming on board, not necessarily in regards to a certain, of course, form of company or entity or institution or field, but equally on matters finance, because then definitely business is always about finance. Today we have a financial specialist who's going to weigh in his sentiments in how best you can run that company that you own. So this indeed is a general program for any kind of business that you are venturing into. So make sure that you stay tuned, and it's going to be more or less like a question answer session where of course we're going to tap as much knowledge in regards to how you can run your company as possible. And of course the specialist of the day is Omondi, who's a senior financial advisor who's going to take us through what it's all about, ensuring that you have that entity of yours running smooth. So like I said earlier on, indeed it's an open and a general ground for any kind of entity. And Mark, thank you so much for having time to be with us.
Pleasure.
And of course, we're looking forward to tap as much knowledge as we can in regards to handling our very own finances, especially when you're running any kind of business. Yes?
Thank you.
Yes, maybe you can say hi to the viewer.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Linda, for inviting me.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
All right, before I delve into my questions and just delve deeper into understanding finances, in your own opinion, I mean, what is finance and what is business? What is all this that is entailed towards ensuring that if you're an entrepreneur, you're able to take your business to the next level?
Now, interestingly, just to start off, finance is just a segment of economics where you get to understand how money flows in and out. And I think for entrepreneurs, it would be very important to just understand how money flows in and out in your business so that you are able to know how best you can utilize the resources in your company.
All right. So in your own opinion, again, I'll ask this, and I think it's more or less the very same question. What is your opinion in what makes good a financial mode or a good financial mode?
I think usually when you are settling on a financial mode, it's there are certain assumptions that you put into perspective, and I think a couple of financial advisors may not necessarily take into account some of those assumptions. So for me, a good financial mode would be one that puts into perspective all the assumptions, especially when you're looking at the different parameters of a financial system. Then you put everything, you package it so that it essentially suits whoever you are advising. And in this case, for entrepreneurs, it would be a good way of just ensuring that the decisions you make based on your financial mode really are articulate.
All right. So what then would be the most appropriate, just relation of course, economics and finance? If you view these two, I mean, what would be the most appropriate way to describe the two and the relationship between the two?
Like I started off, finance is basically a segment of economics. Economics is a bit broad.
Right.
And when we are talking about economics, we are looking at the overall performance of a government, different sectors and all that. And of course, the public policies that govern the way governments work and all that. Now, when we look at finance on the other side, we are simply looking at, I really wouldn't want to call it a smaller segment of economics, but tentatively it focuses more on companies, how you understand the monetary system as regards to companies and of course individuals to some extent.
And walking into the business world, young scholars coming into this with so much interest, which one would you rather they venture into? Economics at large, that broad spectrum of it, or finance in particular? Or it depends with the interests?
I think that depends on the interest, just like you're putting it. First of all, you need to understand if you are a scholar looking to take into either of these two segments, then you're looking at, are you a person who is interested in understanding how governments work?
Yeah.
how public policies affect the way governments operate, and how that, of course, translates to the people at the very bottom of the spectrum. If that is your interest, then obviously pursuing economics would be the best way to go. On the other side, if you are somebody who is very keen with analyzing the way entities, organizations perform, how their finances are structured, and to some extent even individuals, how individuals package their finances,
Right.
then it would interest you to pursue something in finance. Yes.
All right. There are a lot of facts and figures and, of course, aspects of this. And one would want to understand then what would be the method to compare the liquidity, profitability, and credit history of a company.
And I believe that is in relations to entrepreneurship.
Yes.
Now, profitability, you must have heard people talk out here about a company being more profitable and the other one making losses.
Right.
And of course, one being more liquid, the other one being less liquid. I think those two items pretty much go together if you really are looking at a company that is stable in the long term.
Right.
A company may be profitable, they are getting returns on their investments,
Right.
but on the other side, they are not able to meet their short-term obligations. So that means their liquidity is very low, but they are making profits. On the other side, you could find a company that is well able to meet its short-term obligations. That means its liquidity is high, but its profitability is low. So I think what we are looking at, if you really want to run a successful company, it's a good idea to just look at a balance between the two,
Right.
such that you don't have too much cash sitting there idle that is not invested.
Yeah.
And on the other side, you're also still making profits.
Profits.
I think that's a balance that is usually a challenge to most entrepreneurs. Yes.
If we are to advise them then, what would be the most advisable ways for an organization or any entrepreneur, an individual, to ensure that they invest their money in ways that would be, of course, logical in terms of balancing that?
You would first of all assess the strengths. If you're looking at a company, you would assess, let me give just an example.
Right.
You have a telecommunications company. Assuming you're even the CFO of a company, you would want to understand which avenues of our business as a telecommunications company gives us more return. Is it the core line of our business?
Right.
Then of course that is where you channel your finances towards.
Okay.
And of course minimize expenditure on avenues that really do not translate to the core business of a company. Yes.
How then do you say that you're able to boost these other entities or these other sides that really do not channel so much towards boosting their company in a way when you look at the long term? Because there are other sectors that would not sound so rosy at the moment, but equally when you look at the long term picture, they seem promising. So how then do you do that balancing, ensuring that yes, you get to give them enough so that at least they stay afloat until that time that they are able to yield fruits?
And I think that's where financial modeling now comes in.
Right.
As an entrepreneur, it would interest you that you create a balance. It may not be so easy, but over time, as you assess the different segments of your business, you are able to know what percentages of your finances you should allocate to certain segments, and which segments should get lower allocations. So there is really not a straight answer to that.
Right.
But of course, with time, as you assess your business, you get to understand it more. And then you're able to know, should I focus more on operations? Should I focus more on human resource? Should I look at external investments? Yes.
All right. Okay. Aside from being a senior financial advisor, Mark equally is working with a certain entity. And of course, one of the key things that would get people convinced out there
Yeah.
is for them to know whether you practically, just also use the same advices that you give, on your very day-to-day activities or on ground. So if you are the CFO of your very own company, what would keep you up at night?
I think what would worry me most, that would keep me up at night,
Right.
would be when I have too much liquidity.
Okay.
People tend to think...
that is now the boom.
Yes, people tend to think when your liquidity is high, then of course your business is performing well.
Yeah.
But again, when it's too high, much more than ratio of 2 to 1,
Okay.
then we are talking about a company that is not reinvesting into avenues that will give it returns.
Expound more on the ratio 2 to 1 and its essence in line with the entrepreneurship.
I hope this won't be too technical, but
Okay.
we are just looking at the ability of a company to meet its short-term bills,
Right.
so to speak. So if a company, of course, is able to still meet its short-term bills and retain a lot of cash lying idle, then the ratio is way higher. So that means that company is not reinvesting into avenues that will give it more returns because the cash is simply lying idle. So I think going back to the question you asked,
Yes.
if I were a CFO of my own company, I would worry a lot. Even when I'm not making profits, but there is too much cash, I think that kind of high liquidity would really give me a lot of stress, so that I can look for avenues where, as a business, we can reinvest this too much cash that is lying idle in order to get returns on those investments.
All right. That's interesting. So now coming back to the general aspect of companies, when should a company consider issuing debt instead of course, equity, and which is cheaper between the two?
Now, when you're looking at equity, equity is simply stocks.
Right.
So you may want to issue either debt or equity. But when you assess your company in the next 5-10 years as an entrepreneur, because there is a way you understand your business that no one else does. So if you look at your business 5-10 years from now, what are you able to see in terms of the expansion of assets? Are you able to see massive expansion of assets in the next 5 to 10 years? If that's what you're able to see, then obviously you know that 10 years from now, the value of your company will be way higher.
All right.
Therefore, it will be expensive for you to issue equity instead of debt. You would rather go for debt. But again, on the other side, when you're looking at issuing debt, it's also good to look at the kind of interest you are talking about when you are issuing debt as a company.
Right.
So it's pretty much a balance between the two. You get to understand how big you feel your company would be in the next couple of years.
Right.
And then you're able to know, should I issue equity? And if I issue equity worth, let me just give a simple example, worth 1 million today, in the next 10 years, probably that would be equivalent of 10 million. So if you see, if you're issuing that in order to meet your short-term gains, then in the next 10 years you shall have lost as a company.
Interesting. And when we're talking about losses for companies and all that, we also do not wish away, or we do not overlook the stability of a state's economy. And of course, now speaking on our very own state, that is of course Kenya. What would be your advice to the government, considering the current hefty borrowing of foreign debt and also local debt for that matter? And do you think money is being lost just like that?
I hope not to...
Not to fix you, not to fix anybody, but just to get lessons from indeed a senior financial advisor.
Yeah, it's an interesting one.
Yeah.
The talk out here is that the government is borrowing too much. which of course any common person is able to confirm. But I think if those funds were being invested into government projects without too much leakages, like of course we know through corruption and the likes, then I think we wouldn't even be complaining, because by the time we are repaying back those loans, we have gotten return on our investments. The biggest issue that worries me probably as a Kenyan and somebody operating within this industry is that there is too much borrowing, but we are not seeing the same expenditure, which of course trickles down to the common mwananchi. So the borrowing to me is not really an issue, as long as the same funds we are borrowing are being trickled down to the common mwananchi through projects, and of course minimized corruption.
Investment ideas that you would of course advise the government to, you know, venture into, so that at least we get to see the essence of us borrowing and, you know, this money being put to task and, you know, for the value of the common mwananchi.
The health sector.
So much has been put on the health sector, don't you think so?
That I agree, but we still need so much to, we still have a lot to do in the health sector. It may not directly be as productive in the short term, but you see, when we have a healthy economy, when we have healthy citizens, then there is a lot of manpower. And if there is a lot of manpower, obviously, you know, there is a lot of productivity. So directly it may not translate into returns instantly, but I think over time, if the participants in an economy are healthy, then we have an active economy that is translating into a lot of productivity.
Okay. All right. A bit of credit right here. What, in your opinion, would make a good credit analyst?
A good credit analyst.
Or what type of a person would make a good credit analyst?
I think this is something you can learn over time.
All right.
But some of the instant qualities I would pick out on is someone is constantly updated with the way things happen in an economy. They understand how to balance expenditures and income, so that they're able to advise on that balance. And I think over time, throughout this conversation, we've spoke about having a balance between those two as an entrepreneur. So a good credit analyst would be interested in just creating a balance between the inflows and the outflows, and making good use of the outflows eventually.
How an individual manages financial, you know, personal financial risks and all that is key if they are to start up an entity, or if they are to venture into matters entrepreneurship and of course be successful. So in your own personal aspect, how do you manage your risks?
How I manage my risks?
Yes. In your personal life and all that. That would convince us that indeed this is a person, yes, who can equally come to advise us in regards to, you know, matters finance, and of course for the betterment and the growth of the business venture that you've ventured in.
I think managing risks is very important. Sometimes too much appetite leads people into just focusing so much on the returns without looking at the possible losses that could come out of certain decisions. So as a potential investor, I would personally, what I do is I assess, even though I'm looking at certain returns. For example, if you're doing, let me just talk of fixed deposits with banks, you're looking at certain returns. But again, are you also looking at the risks that come with the institution or the financial instrument you're putting your investment into? And you know, we have been in an economy where in the recent past, we've had collapses of certain institutions. So if you are looking at certain investments with certain institutions, then you critically would look at the historical performance of such institutions in a given market. Yes.
All right, thank you so much. And that's more like it on the business niche.
Yeah.
And it's time now that we cross to some bit of quick fire where we take it a little bit easy, but then again, we also just crack our brains on, general issues in regards to life and see how alert as individuals we can be, because then it requires, a person to be so much so alert if they are to venture into any kinds of business. Always know what is the trend in line with the business that you're doing, what is happening, research harder, and just getting to understand the market. So that aspect of being alert is crucial. Thank you so much, Mark, for the great insights. And today we're not going to delve into issues to do with, of course, money talk and all that, because what we've spoken is everything to do with money, because then financial lessons are very key if at all you want to see that business flourish. Keep it right here. We're back in a few. If it took 8 men 10 hours to build a wall, how long will it take 4 men to build it?
To take them the same 8 hours. Really?
Oh yes! If there are 6 apples and you take away 4, how many do you have?
I think I still have 6.
If you had only one match and entered a dark room, and of course the room containing an oil lamp, some newspaper and some kindling wood, which would you light first?
I would light the match.
Wow! Larry's father has 5 sons named 10, 20, 30, 40. Guess what would be the name of the 5th?
Larry.
Wow! If you could live in a city in the world and money was not an issue, where would you live and why?
I think there is no such city.
Business, IQ or EQ?
Both. Yeah, because you need to know how to handle your emotions when you're handling, or understand people's emotions when you're dealing with people. And again, you also need to be intelligent in your decisions.
All right, and as the norm, quick fire is always the last segment of the show, and we cannot go without saying that he's done well. He's just proved to us that indeed he is a senior financial advisor. I mean, out of all the guests I've heard, at least when you were mingi, at least a 3. Was it a 3 or a 2? Out of 7 of the questions that I've asked?
About...
okay, let's just say 2. At least you got it.
You give me the results. I'm really
you've done
curious.
well. Okay. Bottom line is that you've done well in comparison to all the guests I've ever had.
Thank you.
Yes.
So I also have to revenge. It's my turn.
No. I call the shots.
And if you get this right,
okay,
right after this show, I have a gift for you. Are you ready?
You better be. Okay, guy, my good. But you seem to be very confident that I'm not going to get this.
I'm so sure. If you get it right, automatically
I don't know.
there's a gift for you.
Well, the tables have turned on me, but all the same, yes.
Ready?
Let's proceed. Well, I'm ready.
Please breathe in. Breathe out. Here goes the question.
Okay.
How many times can you subtract 10 from 100?
Mathematics, my goodness.
Remember, there is a gift, so just think.
How many times can you subtract 10 from 100? Only once.
No, you must
Wait
have.
wait a minute. Just take me slow, yeah?
Yes.
You must have. Nipe mji at
Is that
least.
your final answer? One more chance.
That should be my final answer. It's only once that you can do that.
You got it right.
Yay! I'm a genius! I'm a genius! Can we just have
Congratulations, Linda.
the viewer has to see you giving me my gift.
Off air.
All right, all the same. Thank you. Man, I'm a genius. I just proved to myself
you
that
are.
I am a genius.
I noticed.
Thank you so much, Mark Omondi. It
Thank
was
you too
great
for
having
having
you.
me.
Senior financial advisor. Indeed, he's proved to us, and equally Jiangusha men as the host. Yeah? Sometimes it's very hard when the tables turn on you, but I am proud of myself as much as I'm proud of you. Thank you so much for the great insights on matters finance.
Thanks, Linda.
As always, it's a pleasure to update you on matters finances and, of course, matters business, matters economy, because technically entrepreneurship runs the world, and that's where we come to the end of the show. My name is Linda Alela. It was great having you, of course, and we're doing this alongside Mark Omondi, who's a senior, of course, financial advisor. We see you again some other time, next time, but of course, it was great having you. Cheers.